The sun hung low over the vast Arizona desert, painting the horizon in hues of amber and crimson, as the Apache father, Tahoma, walked hand-in-hand with his 6-year-old son, Kwaku, across the rugged terrain of their ancestral land. Tahoma's weathered boots crunched against the dry earth, each step a reminder of the stories his own father had told him, tales of warriors, spirits, and the sacred connection to the land that pulsed beneath their feet. Kwaku's small hand gripped his tightly, his curious eyes scanning the cacti and distant mesas, unaware of the weight his father carried. It had been 2 years since Anna, Kwaku's mother, had passed, taken too soon by an illness that no medicine could cure. Tahoma still felt her absence like a missing limb, a quiet ache that never dulled. That morning, as they visited the tribal market, Kwaku had tugged at his sleeve, pointing to an elder woman weaving baskets. "She smells like Mama," he'd said, his voice soft but certain, his words piercing Tahoma's heart like an arrow. The scent of sage and juniper, so familiar, had clung to the woman's shawl, stirring memories of Anna's laughter, her gentle touch, and the way she'd braid her hair with wildflowers. Tahoma knelt beside his son, swallowing the lump in his throat, and nodded. "Maybe she does, little one," he whispered, unsure how to explain that scents could carry ghosts. The market buzzed around Ama, vendors calling out, children laughing, the rhythmic beat of a drum circle in the distance. But for Tahoma, time stopped. He saw Anna and Kwaku's wide brown eyes, in the way his lips curled into a shy smile, and it was both a comfort and a wound. That night, as they sat by the fire outside their home, Tahoma decided it was time to share more of Anna's story with Kwaku, to help him understand the mother he barely remembered. He began with the legend of the white-painted woman, a sacred figure in Apache lore, whose strength and love mirrored Anna's. Kwaku listened, his small body leaning against his father's, the firelight dancing on his face. Tahoma spoke of how Anna loved the desert's secrets, teaching Kwaku to listen to the wind, to respect the spirits in every stone and stream. The boy's words at the market echoed in Tahoma's mind, a reminder that Anna's essence lingered in the world around them, in the sage, the wind, the very air they breathed. As the stars emerged, Tahoma felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps through stories, he could keep Anna alive for Kwaku, and for himself, too. The next morning, Tahoma woke before dawn, the air cool and heavy with the scent of creosote after a rare desert rain. Kwaku still slept, curled under a woven blanket Anna had made, its patterns telling stories of their people's journey. Tahoma stepped outside, his breath visible in the faint light, and looked toward the mountains where he and Anna used to walk, sharing dreams of raising Kwaku with the old ways, teaching him to hunt, to pray, to honor the earth. Her death had left Tahoma adrift, questioning the traditions he'd once held sacred. How could the spirits allow such loss? Yet Kwaku's words about the woman at the market had stirred something in him, a need to reconnect with the past, to find meaning in the pain. He remembered Diana's belief in the interconnectedness of all things, how she'd say the desert held memories, whispering them to those who listened. Tahoma decided to take Kwaku to the sacred spring where Anna had loved to pray, hoping it would help them both feel her presence. As they walked later that day, Kwaku chattered about the animals he saw: a jackrabbit darting through the brush, a hawk circling above Ia, and Tahoma marveled at his son's resilience, so like his mother's. At the spring, the water shimmered under the midday sun, reflecting the sky like a mirror. Tahoma showed Kwaku how to offer corn pollen to the water, a gesture of gratitude to the spirits. "Mama came here, didn't she?" Kwaku asked, dipping his fingers into the cool stream. Tahoma nodded, his voice thick. "She said this place was where the earth's heart beats." Kwaku smiled, splashing the water, and Tahoma felt a pang. How could a child so young carry such wisdom, such connection to a mother he barely knew? He told Kwaku about Anna's love for healing herbs, how she'd gather sage and juniper to make teas that soothed the soul. The scent at the market, Tahoma realized, wasn't just a coincidence. It was a bridge to Anna's spirit, a reminder that she was never truly gone. As they sat by the spring, Tahoma wove stories of Anna's courage, how she'd once faced a rattlesnake to protect a neighbor's child, her heart fierce and unwavering. Kwaku listened, his eyes wide, and Tahoma felt the weight of his grief lighten, if only slightly, as he shared these truths with his son. 3 days passed, and Tehoma found himself watching Kwaku closely, searching for more signs of Anna in his gestures, his laughter, his quiet moments. The boy had her curiosity, her way of tilting his head when deep in thought. One afternoon, they visited the tribal elder, Nizoni, whose hands were gnarled from years of weaving and whose eyes held the wisdom of countless winters. Kwaku, clutching a small basket he'd made with Tehoma's help, shyly offered it to her. Nizoni smiled, her voice warm as she praised his work, and Tehoma caught the faint scent of sage on her shoulder, the same scent Kwaku had noticed at the market. "She smells like Mama," Kwaku whispered again, and Tehoma's heart clenched. Nizoni, hearing the boy, knelt down and touched his cheek. "Your mother's spirit is strong," she said. "She walks with you, always." Tehoma felt a surge of gratitude for the elder's words, which seemed to weave a thread between the living and the lost. That evening, Nizoni shared stories of the Apache way of honoring those who had passed, explaining how scents, songs, and rituals kept their spirits close. Tehoma listened, his mind drifting to memories of Anna teaching Kwaku to sing a lullaby in their language, her voice soft as a desert breeze. He realized he'd stopped singing those songs after her death, too consumed by grief. Now, he felt an urge to revive them, to teach Kwaku the melodies that carried their heritage. As they left Nizoni's home, Kwaku hummed a lullaby, stumbling over the words but trying so hard that Tehoma's eyes stung with unshed tears. Back at home, Tehoma lit a bundle of sage, letting the smoke curl upward, a prayer to the spirits. He told Kwaku how Anna believed sage carried messages to the ancestors, and the boy's face lit up, as if he could see his mother in the swirling smoke. Tehoma knew then that he had to keep these traditions alive, not just for Kwaku, but for himself to heal the fracture in his soul. For the desert nights grew colder, and Tehoma found solace in the routine of teaching Kwaku the old ways, from tracking deer to identifying plants Anna had loved. One evening, as they sat under a sky blazing with stars, Kwaku asked why his mother had to leave. The question hit Tehoma like a stone, and he struggled to find words that wouldn't break the boy's heart further. He spoke of the Apache belief in the circle of life, how every soul returns to the earth, becoming part of the wind, the trees, the mountains. "Your mom is in the sage you smelled," he said, his voice steady despite the ache in his chest. "She's in the songs we sing, the stories we tell." Kwaku nodded, his small face serious, and Tehoma felt a swell of pride at his son's strength. They began a project together, gathering sage and juniper to make smudging bundles, a way to honor Anna's memory. Tehoma taught Kwaku how to tie the herbs tightly, explaining their sacred purpose. The boy worked with care, his small fingers fumbling but determined, and Tehoma saw Anna's patience in him. As they worked, Tehoma shared more stories of Anna's laughter during harvest festivals, her skill at dancing in the sunrise ceremony, her fierce love for their people. Each story felt like a step toward healing, a way to weave Anna's spirit into their lives. One night, Kwaku woke from a dream, his eyes bright with excitement. "Mama was here," he said. She was smiling. Tehoma held him close, wondering if Anna's spirit truly visited, or if Kwaku's heart was simply reaching for her. Either way, it gave Tehoma hope, a reason to keep going, to keep teaching his son the traditions that bound them to their ancestors and to each other. 5. The tribal council announced a gathering to honor the ancestors, a ceremony filled with drums, dances, and offerings to the spirits. Tehoma decided it was time for Kwaku to participate, to feel the strength of their community and the presence of those who came before. As they prepared, Tehoma helped Kwaku craft a small offering, a bundle of sage and wildflowers, tied with a strip of cloth from one of Anna's old dresses. The scent of the bundle filled their home, and Kwaku clutched it tightly, saying, "It's like Mama's here." Tehoma's throat tightened, but he smiled, encouraging his son to lead the way. At the gathering, the air thrummed with energy, elders chanting, children running, the fire at the center casting shadows on faces painted with pride and reverence. Tehoma watched Kwaku place his offering at the altar, his small hands steady, and felt a surge of love for the boy who carried Anna's spirit so fiercely. The drums pulsed like a heartbeat, and Tehoma joined the men's dance, his movements slow but powerful, each step a prayer for strength, for healing, for his son. Kwaku watched, wide-eyed, and later joined the children's circle, his laughter mingling with the music. An elder woman, her shawl fragrant with sage, approached Tahoma after the ceremony, her eyes kind. "Your son sees her," she said. "He feels her in the world." Tahoma nodded, grateful for the reminder that Anna's love transcended death, living in Kwaku's heart, in the community's embrace, in the land itself. That night, as they walked home under a moonlit sky, Kwaku hummed the lullaby Anna had taught him, and Tahoma joined in, their voices blending in the quiet desert there, a fragile but beautiful connection to the past. 6. As weeks turned to months, Tahoma noticed a change in himself, a softening of the grief that had once consumed him. Teaching Kwaku the Apache ways, sharing Anna's stories, and honoring her through rituals had become a bridge to healing. One day, they visited the tribal museum, where artifacts and photographs told the story of their people's resilience. Kwaku pointed to a woven blanket, its pattern similar to the one Anna had made. "Did Mama learn from her mama?" he asked, and Tahoma smiled, explaining how skills were passed down, mother to daughter, father to son. He realized that in teaching Kwaku, he was continuing Anna's legacy, ensuring her love and wisdom lived on. They spent hours at the museum, Tahoma recounting tales of Apache warriors and healers, Kwaku soaking in every word. Later, they sat by a stream, and Tahoma taught Kwaku to make a small bow, just as Anna had once taught him. The boy's laughter echoed as he aimed at a target, and Tahoma felt a warmth he hadn't known since Anna's death. That evening, as they burned sage and prayed, Kwaku spoke of his mother with a new clarity, describing memories Tahoma hadn't shared. Her soft voice, her gentle hands. It unnerved Tahoma at first, but he began to believe that Anna's spirit was truly guiding them, her presence woven into the fabric of their lives. The scent of sage, once a painful reminder, now felt like a gift, a way to feel her near. Tahoma knew the grief would never fully leave, but it was transforming into something softer, a love that endured through stories, traditions, and the bond he shared with his son. 7. One spring morning, Tahoma and Kwaku set out to climb a mesa where Anna had loved to watch the sunrise. The trail was steep, but Kwaku's energy was boundless, his small legs scrambling over rocks as he chattered about the stories Tahoma had told him. At the summit, they sat together, the desert stretching endlessly below, the sky ablaze with color. Tahoma felt Anna's presence in the warmth of the sun, in the breeze that carried the scent of sage. He told Kwaku about the Apache creation story, how the world was born from the breath of the Creator, and how every living thing was connected. Kwaku listened, then pointed to a hawk soaring above. "Is Mama in the hawk?" he asked, and Tahoma smiled, saying, "Maybe she is, watching over us." They sat in silence, the world alive around them, and Tahoma felt a peace he hadn't known in years. He realized that Kwaku's words at the market, "She smells like Mama," had been more than a child's observation. They were a spark that had reignited Tahoma's connection to his culture, his son, and his lost love. Back home, they planted a small garden with sage and wildflowers, a living tribute to Anna. Kwaku tended it with care, whispering to the plants as if they could hear him. Tahoma watched, his heart full, knowing that through his son, Anna's spirit would continue to bloom, as eternal as the desert itself. 8. The seasons turned, and Tahoma and Kwaku grew closer, their days filled with lessons, laughter, and the quiet presence of Anna's memory. At the next tribal gathering, Kwaku stood proudly, reciting a prayer Tahoma had taught him, his voice clear and strong. The community cheered, and Tahoma saw the pride in their eyes, a reflection of the strength he and his son had found together. The scent of sage filled the air, carried by the wind, and Tahoma felt Anna's love in every breath. He knew now that grief was not an end, but a journey, a path that led to healing through stories, traditions, and the unbreakable bond between father and son. Kwaku, now 7, carried his mother's spirit in his heart, in the way he sang her songs, tended her garden, and spoke her name with love. Tahoma understood that the heartbreaking truth of Anna's loss was also a beautiful one. She was never truly gone. Her essence lived in the sage, the wind, the stories, and the boy who saw her in the world around him. As they walked home under a starlit sky, Kwaku squeezed Tahoma's hand and said, I think Mom is happy we're together." Tahoma nodded, his voice soft. "She is, little one. She always will be." And in that moment, with the desert stretching endless before them, Tahoma felt whole, knowing that love, like the land, endured forever.